April 2021 is almost here, can you believe it? Man, time flies. Well, I got some new book releases this month ranging from mostly fantasy, let's be honest, but also some sci-fi and thriller. If this is the type of content you enjoy, be sure to subscribe. I do these every single month, so let's not waste any more time and jump right in. I have 3 really exciting books coming out on my list on April 6th, and the first one is The Infinity Quartz. This is a YA sci-fi, the first to a series, most notably being compared to Westworld and Warcross, which is in a very interesting pairing. It's about a teen girl navigating an afterlife in which she must defeat an AI entity intent on destroying humanity. This seems like a really creative, densely packed, and fun story, especially if you're into the psychological aspect. Hopefully, it explores some really interesting technology as well, with the mention of like AI, and shakes up the YA genre a bit in terms of SFF. First Become Ashes. So upon first glimpse, I thought this was a thriller, but it's actually an adult queer fantasy, or magical realism, which took me way by surprise. This is from the author who wrote Docile, which was a pretty popular dystopian upon its release last year, I believe. The story is told through alternating points of views between past and present. It's a cult brainwashing based fantasy story. Major trigger warnings here, as the author puts, a lot of trauma upon the characters. There is even a warning at the beginning of the book before you begin reading. Some real deep stuff here, including sexually explicit scenes, so please be aware of that. And the last book coming out on April 6th is House of Hollows. If you're looking for a YA fantasy horror mix, this could be the book you pick up this month. It's following 3 sisters who went missing as children and returned 1 month later with no memory of what happened to them. The sisters come back different, with white blonde hair, black eyes, matching scars on the base of their necks, and special abilities. The setting straddles the real world of England in a supernatural world. The supernatural elements that are there are supposedly very dark. This is not a light and fluffy fantasy, and there are a lot of grotesque details. April 13th is one of the biggest days in terms of the amount of books releasing, as I have 6 books on my list, and the first one is The Girl and the Mountain. If you've been waiting a while to finally read a new Lawrence book, well, here's your chance with the sequel to The Girl and the Stars. The most interesting element about this series, in my opinion, is its world, which is covered almost entirely in ice. It's set in the same world as Red Sister, so if you're behind, you have plenty of books to binge. This series overall has a great aesthetic to it, following a teenage girl and a bit of an action-adventure plot in Lawrence's known classic writing prowess. The Light of the Midnight Stars, a new book from the author who wrote Sisters of the Winter Wood. This author has been very creative for a really long time, and though her previous book wasn't my jam, I am excited to give this one a try. This story is packed full of Romanian history and folklore and Jewish notes. It's set in Hungary in the 14th century, and it's a tale of 3 different daughters of a Jewish rabbi living in this small village, and each daughter has mystical gifts. The story follows each of the sisters in alternating chapters who make choices that direct their fate. The Helm of Midnight, I thought for sure I knew what this book was going to be, just judging by the cover, and wow, was I wrong. The first book in a new fantasy trilogy. It centers around a heist from the Law's perspective. That's right, this is a fantasy thriller hybrid with a unique magic system based on external emotions. Essentially, it's a cool spin on Jack the Ripper of London with a serial killer stalking the streets. I feel like I just explained like 3 different books. It's definitely making its rounds around the book community, and people are talking about it. Victories Greater Than Death, a new YA sci-fi space opera with loads of queer rep coming at you in April from Tor. I am always up for a fun space adventure, and though this is a short one, or just around like 300 pages or just below 300 pages, the story begins on Earth, but it expands throughout the entire galaxy. It follows a teenage girl who is a clone to an alien hero. It involves the found family trope. If you're looking for a possibly fun space romp that isn't too complicated, check this one out. Composite Creatures. This is a dystopian debut coming from Angry Robot with one heck of a memorable cover. It's following a couple named Nora and Arthur, and they adopt a a pet that is a genetically modified creature. Essentially, it's a single-handedly linear narrative slow burner. It's more focused on storytelling and relationship building. It's been described as like a thinker of a book. I really hope this story takes some of the plot mechanics we are used to in dystopian and sci-fi and creates an emotional punch. Near the Bones, a very disturbing adult thriller coming our way following Maddie, who lives with her husband in an isolated cabin in the woods, when she finds a mutilated fox and realizes there is something else in the woods with them. Something that was never there before. This is a survival story at its heart. As a fan of weird creature horror and being trapped on a snowy mountain, hopefully the author can really take this scary plot and run with it, whereas our main characters will be running away from the monsters. One of my most anticipated releases is the only book coming out on the 15th on my list, and that is The Way of the Argosy. I probably said that word so wrong. This book is a no-brainer for fans of the Spellslinger series, myself included. I really hope The Way of the Argosy can live up to the potential and live up to this author's previous titles, because this could easily be one of the best titles this month, or even this year. This is an origin story for one of the best characters in that original series, named Various Parfax. I think this is going to create some really cool and funny scenarios for this character, who has such a refreshing personality. I'm expecting a very Western swashbuckling adventure. April 20th is another very busy day as we have another 6 books. The first one is The Last Watch. The Expanse meets Game of Thrones in this first book to a new sci-fi series where a handful of soldiers stand between humanity and annihilation. This is also a debut, and early reviews are looking really good. We honestly need more women writing adult sci-fi, so this Battlestar Galactica vibe story that is supposed to be hell-raisingly fast-paced, I cannot wait to get my hands on it. The Queen of Ismaraz, this is the stunning sequel to The Ranger of Marzana. I have no idea if I'm saying these titles correctly, so I'm just winging it. This is a political heavy adult fantasy. It's very epic, character-driven, and has lots of Slavic influences. If you're looking for sibling rivalry, this could definitely be your cup of tea. I'm not entirely sure if this is just a duology or a trilogy, but nonetheless, both books are huge, so plenty of time to pass in this world. Witches Steeped in Gold. So I know a lot of us have been clamoring for more diverse hype in the book industry, and this is definitely one of them. It's a debut YA fantasy with heavy Jamaican influence, featuring 2 rival witches forming an alliance to take down a common enemy. It's dark and magical, and the potential here is absolutely nuts. I really hope others can see themselves represented here. I'm always so happy to see more of this kind of story. And Deeper Waters. Queer cover porn, let's just give a round of applause here. So I'm breaking my rules here a bit, even though I don't see myself. I mean, I could totally change my mind, but this isn't necessarily a me book. It's a historical romance, but it does have fantasy thrown in, and I'll get to that in a second. The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue meets Pirates of the Caribbean, which sounds pretty sweet with the piratey element. It's following a young prince who gets kidnapped when a mysterious pirate stranger saves him. I could totally be in the mood for this one day, we'll see. Up next is Dustborn. We have another Mad Max Western book, which is just I'm so excited for this one. This author also wrote Vengeance Road, so she's sticking to the same style. It's a YA dystopian. It's following Delta, who returns to her family out in the wasteland when she discovers they've all been kidnapped by an evil leader. This book has a wide variety of action to pull you in. I cannot wait to dive into this apocalyptic setting. Eye of the Shitstorm comes out on the 27th, the third and final book in the Frost Files trilogy, following Tegan Frost, a young woman who possesses incredible psychokinetic powers and has to deal with real-life consequences that come with them. With hilarious creativity and weird over-the-top moments, and also just a bunch of great character moments and some real good drama, the series walks a real fine line of interesting storytelling and just absurdity, and I think we need that sometimes. And finally, on April 29th is the release of Priest of Gallows, the third book in the War of the Rose Throne series, the first book being Priest of Bones, in case you don't recognize the cover theme. I feel like this is a very highly anticipated book in the SFF world. This is a very dark and bloody adult series. It has a gangstery vibe where the city is divided and the lower parts are run by gangs. Imagine The Godfather but with swords. In fact, if you are like me and love morally gray characters and anti-heroes, then this series may be up your alley. There will be a 4th book in this series, so I guess be excited. So those are a bunch of books that are coming out in April that we should all be paying attention to. Please be sure to let me know in the comments which ones you'll be picking up, what catches your fancy. Are there any books I didn't mention that you are excited for? Let me know. If you enjoy this type of content, be sure to subscribe. I do these every single month, and follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram at Holly Hearts Books and on Twitter at Holly Niece. And until we meet again, happy reading.